where I am.
Sorry, technical difficulties here.
No, I got you. I'm surprised the Wi-Fi is working. I'm in the equipment closet.
Where are you?
Just in B101, we have the equipment room. So the kids are recording a newscast for tomorrow. So the realities of teaching, right? This is
Yep,
great for our future teachers to see.
I
Uh,
love it.
yeah, good times, right? So they're doing a great job. But thanks again for joining me, Colleen Dunigan. If I mispronounced that, I'm sorry, Colleen. She is one of our house schools work EDLA 2010 students in this 8-week accelerated course for fall 8-week 2. And checked in with her earlier. Great student, and she might have a question or two. And I think what we'll do is we'll ask her to. Are you ready to get started? Are you okay with that? Or
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
and I've got 8 questions. I just whittled it. We had about 16 people that had 3 questions apiece, and I just whittled it down to 8.
Awesome.
So let's go ahead and ask Colleen. Do you want to wait until I've asked 8 questions to ask anything that you have a question about, or do you want to say anything to start us out with?
Honestly, the three questions that I picked is already on the list, so it's good for
Seriously?
me.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's awesome. Oh, good for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. So let me go ahead and start with the first one. What are some words of encouragement or advice for new teachers who may feel worried and anxious about their first year of teaching?
Yeah. I will never forget my first day of teaching, 19 years ago. I took a fifth grade teaching position and I got to lunchtime and I turned off the lights in my classroom and I laid my head down on my desk. And after about 2 or 3 minutes of like just like calming myself, I was like, "Oh, I have lunch duty." And I like ran outside. I ran out to lunch duty. I will never forget. It was like the craziest day of my life, and I had no idea what I was in for. But here I am 19 years later, and I still love this job. I still love coming to school every day, even though I can be crazy busy some days. It's the best job ever. And my husband always kind of laments about what my salary is and what my benefits are. But he was like, you love your job and you're passionate about what you do. And for that, he's so jealous because I can't say that he's very passionate about business intelligence and going to his cubicle every day.
All
So
that passion.
we're really fortunate to have this job.
Yeah. Well, thanks. You gave me a flashback. I started teaching in 2001, I think. Yeah,
Yep.
9/11. Because
Yep.
it's unfortunately the way I remember it. But I was in Red Oak ISD and on special ed for 3 classes and content mastery for 3 more, high school level. And I'll
Yeah.
never forget this. I was so like I couldn't sleep for days. And it's the night before.
Uh-huh.
No matter how prepared you are, you're never 100%. You can always be more prepared. And I went in, I taught my 3 sections of content mastery, which is just an open lab. And then I went to resource math. And I was like, all right. And there's this kid in the
Yeah.
back room and he had this white t-shirt on with this shaved sides of his head and his hair was all slicked back and he was in the back just sitting on a table and swinging his feet and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I went back there. I said, hey, my name is Mr. Parrish. And he said, what are we doing today? But he used an expletive I can't say out loud. And
Oh
I was like,
no.
I like paused like a robot and I was like, all right, retracting the hand. It's great to have you here. You can just hang out back here for a while.
Why
Um,
you stay back
but
here?
yeah, you do you. All right. But like you said, it's like you are excited for the next day. No matter how tired you are,
Yeah.
it's definitely got to be a passion even more so now than ever, right?
Yeah, and it's always like even the night before the first day of school, like it's the best. Like I never sleep on the night before school starts.
It's like right before your birthday or something when
Yeah, it is.
you're like, oh yay, what's gonna get? So number two, thanks for answering that. I appreciate it. What are some tips for new teachers that are not commonly mentioned that maybe you even see? And feel free to identify like gaps and you see people coming in from the pool of teachers. What are some things or something that you have a tip for a new teacher, kind of help them out?
Um, find your work family. Find people at school that you want to be friends with. Because I often see like teaching is such a big job. you're dealing with parents and you're dealing with administrators and you're dealing with students and you're dealing with all of these things, and you need people that you love and support each other, and you need to laugh during the day. Like you need adult time. Like I see new teachers come in, they isolate themselves, they hide out in their classrooms because they're just so busy. It's just nose to the grindstone and they're just trying to get things done that they don't take like the social aspect of teaching, and they just get burnt out so fast because they don't have time to like take their brains away from the work. And building a family around you is so important. So go eat lunch every day with people, even if it's just one person. Um, that you enjoy being around, that makes you laugh. Because even if it's just 10 minutes, because you've got to go make copies or you've got to go put something on Canvas or you've got to go do whatever, like make time to have adult time. And build those relationships so that you don't burn yourself out and you don't find yourself in this isolated spot.
And if you turn the lights off and you're having a moment to yourself,
Yep,
set an alarm if you have lunch duty.
that's right. Yes, and set your alarm for
Yeah,
everything.
don't forget that. Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. So the third question is, what are some common mistakes that new teachers make, and how can we try to avoid those?
Yeah. The biggest the biggest hot topic right now, at least here in Frisco, is accommodations and knowing what those accommodations are for your special education students and for your 504 students. There's so many. I mean, if you have 150 kids, you probably have at least 15, if not 20% of those kids with some accommodations. And they're all over the place, especially in 504, because they can be like, oh, well, this will work for a kid. Let's add that in as an accommodation. You're like, what does this mean? And so you're constantly trying to have to make sure that you're following them. And then on top of that, you've got to track all of those accommodations. Are the kids using it? Are you using it? Unfortunately, you guys know, like everybody is so litigious these days that every once in a while, I mean, 99% of your kids, it's fine. 99% of your parents, great. There's always a parent that's going to come back to you and say, are you giving my child this accommodation?
And prove it
Um,
too, right? Like show
and
me
prove
the
it.
data. Yeah.
Yeah. And so knowing those accommodations, and then not only like I kind of mentioned this earlier, like being in isolation, but like use the SPED teachers and use the SPED coaches and the SPED people, the powers that be in the SPED department as your resource. So if you're unsure what to do with a kid, go down and talk to a special education teacher. I guarantee you that they will be a huge support to you. So you're not working you're not working in isolation, but you're getting what you need and getting your students what they need. But that can be a beast to tackle,
Mm.
and don't wait because that is something that will catch up to you really quickly if you let it kind of fester.
And as we both know, it's like a law. You have to have those accommodations and
Mhm.
odds in place from day one. I mean, even if you just get
Yep.
submitted enrolled. I remember in a certain district I was in, great district, super Title One, and uh, they would literally call me in the DAP center and say that, hey, we're dropping, John Smith, I'm just making up
Mhm.
names here, off in an hour. And oh yeah, we just sent the paperwork to you guys.
Yeah.
And your job as a teacher is to follow policy, but also the law. So we have
Yeah.
to serve that child, as you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff.
Can
And
be a
just
scary
yeah,
place to be.
yeah, totally. But the trackers or something, if you don't mind, can you say kind of what Frisco does? I mean, I'm aware of these things, but I think it'd be helpful to let the students that watch this know with some of the sports that are, tracker can be a good thing because it is data and it is a way to back you up and also make sure that you're not losing them in the ether. Do you have anything to say about the trackers that we use, and do you
Yeah.
find that that's valuable tool?
Yeah, and I would say like I've been in several secondary schools and I've been at the elementary school, so I kind of have different places do different things. And so whatever it is that your district uses, use that. If they don't have anything, it's almost kind of CYA. Find something that works for you, be either a spreadsheet, be it a Google form, be it a paper, get yourself a binder with paper and then you write down all the accommodations and your check marking. At the last school that I was at, our SPED coach was awesome. And she created a Google form for every single one of our sped students. And you had to go in once a week. You put a calendar invite and you reminded yourself to go in and fill out which accommodations each special education student was using in your class. That's great. We don't require that here at the school that I'm at currently. Everybody kind of uses their own method. And so I would say a spreadsheet is probably your best bet. And I would just have all of the kids' names. I would have the accommodations on the top, and then I would check off the accommodations that they're using. A lot of our special education students, when they fail a class, you have to be able to justify as to why they failed. And so if I have a student that is, super low and is reading on a second or third grade level, but they're in English 1 in ninth grade and they fail English 1, I can't be like, well, guess what? They're not reading on a ninth grade level. Well, no, because they're in special education. I'm having to design curriculum and instruction to meet their needs, and so I want to make sure that every single day that I'm following those accommodations and I'm modifying their work.
Sometimes it feels like goals versus grades. That's
Yeah.
easy to just compare it to grades when maybe that's not the task at hand.
Yep.
And I noticed in some training that we had recently in FISD that was interesting. They said, like, let's say I'm teaching English and John Smith's teaching math to the same student. If somebody is asking to pull the records, like the parent or guardian is asking for the tracker for that class, even though they might be getting A's and hunches across the board in mine, they can still request and get that track information from my class in math or English or whatever I'm doing, right? And so that's even more so important to not just insulate yourself, but prove that you've been following the same processes so there's no gaps in that learning.
Yeah, for sure. And I think any way to that you can um, follow up with an email to the parent or follow up with some sort of communication so that there is documentation is really helpful. I am one of those kind of people. I have an ongoing document that every single day I kind of write notes down of things that I did or didn't do. And that way I can kind of like jog my old memory into what it was that I did that day. So I definitely would make it a habit to anytime that you can follow up with emails or anytime that you can notate what you've done for a kid, I think that's really helpful.
Absolutely. Very good. Question 4 is, how do you incorporate different cultures into the overall environment of the school, especially in diverse areas? And as we both know, this is a very diverse school. We have how many languages? Like over 60 or something? Like it's ridiculous
Crazy.
amounts. It's crazy. It's very amazing. So what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on incorporating different cultures into the environment?
Yeah, so I mean, our school does so many things. We have a multicultural fair. We do all sorts of like bringing in the community, but I think the biggest thing for teachers to do is recognizing and celebrating those cultures within your classroom. And so, like, it could be just like in the staff update. Like, I didn't know what Diwali was for the longest time. I was not born where there were students from India and their families from India. And so I had to kind of educate myself on, oh, okay, well, this is why this kid was absent last week and they missed 3 days of school because they were at a festival or they were with their families praying or whatever it was. And then like my first homecoming dance and they started playing a Bollywood song and I was like, and all the kids were dancing in a circle and they were all
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh, what's happening? But one of the biggest things is just awareness when it comes to communication. When I was having conversations with kids and they wouldn't look at me in the eye, I found it so disrespectful until I educated myself and I realized, oh, well, they find it disrespectful to look an adult in the eye, especially when having, maybe an intense conversation or disciplining them or whatever it happens to be. And so it's just those cultural awareness that I think is really important, especially when it comes to communication with kids and their
absolutely.
families.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a teacher on staff in one district where she was on my team and she was frustrated because she was going back and forth with emails with the parent.
Hmm.
I said, I've got like a 2 email policy, more or less. Once it reaches past 2 emails, just call the parent,
Um,
document it. It doesn't mean that, and sometimes things get so blown out of proportion, right? With emails, where
mhm.
you wouldn't have that problem at all if you just made a call and said, don't let it get to that point. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, but as far as the eyesight and making eye contact, a very good observation. So number 5 is, what is the most important thing to think about, or one of the most important things to think about, in your opinion, when going into your first year of teaching?
Yeah. I always hire teachers based on their potential. I feel like everybody needs to be passionate about what they teach. If you are not passionate about English, do not teach English. If you're not passionate about math, please don't teach math. Be passionate about what you teach because, oh, and if the first job that you take isn't the job that you see yourself being passionate about, but you know that in a few years you can get there, that's fantastic. Because you've got to teach something that you are passionate about and that something that you're excited about teaching. Um, we can teach teachers to teach. In fact, we have a lot of teachers that don't have like the wherewithal to even they haven't even been in a classroom before sometimes, and we hire them because we know that they're great with kids, they're relational, they have a passion for the subject area, and we can teach them how to teach, and you can learn content. So I always say it takes 3 years to become really good at a content. The first year you were just learning the content. The second year, you're learning about how to teach the content. And then the third year, you're putting those two things together. And so it's really the end of year 3 that's the magical time, is because like all three of those things kind of come together finally. I walked into fifth grade science my first day of school, and I mean, I knew basic science. I wasn't a science major by any stretch. And did I remember the moon phases? No, I did not. And so it's like you are really just learning along with the kids. And so learning the content is it comes, and learning the pedagogy, it comes. It's being passionate about your subject area, and it's being passionate about kids and building relationships with kids that are the most important to me.
Said it best with the relationship building. That's so massive. So number 6 is, what personal and external factors have you worked on in order to support yourself as an educator and others in your school and community?
Yeah, this is something we talk about every single day in our admin meetings, is how do we take care of our teachers? Because teaching is such a hard job, and we want to keep great teachers. Now we know, teachers, they've become stay-at-home parents. They decide that teaching is not for them, but at the end of the day, we want them to take care of themselves and to be able to come back the next day and do a great job. So self-care, no matter what your income level, find it. If you can't afford your, a 80-minute massage every month, that's okay. Like find something that helps you. I know some people get up super early in the morning. I know some people make it a priority to exercise. But do what makes you happy. Do what kind of helps you, and that's going to be different for everybody. Take your days off as you need to. Never apologize. I had a principal, and Dr. Parrish, I know you could speak to this principal as well. She did not like it when people took days off. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
They need the days off. They need to take care of their families. They need to take care of their selves. They need to take care of like moms and dads that are aging. I mean, there's so many different things. Being a teacher is a really hard job, and they need to take days off. So to do what really fills your bucket.
Well, that's really good advice, and especially there's a lot of times where you're afraid to ask off or whatever. I think from a teacher's perspective, because you're kind of afraid to hear the no. And I think
Yeah.
it goes to show you it all depends on the school culture and the culture that the principal is and admin is creating at that
Mhm.
atmosphere of school. So
Yeah.
very good. Number 7 is, how do you go about ensuring the mental well-being of teachers and students alike? And that
Yeah.
could include admin too, because that's you have mental health you got to take care of. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say the, find positivity around the school. Sometimes I would go to lunch, as when I was working in middle school, I would go to lunch and there was somebody who was super negative in our lunch, and it was just always complaining, and it's easy to get sucked into that. Find people who are positive and that want to help listen to your concerns. Like there are times when you've got to be negative and you've got to vent and you've just got to get it all out because it's really bad whatever's happened. Um, but find people that are positive. Counselors are really helpful. At the middle school and high school, the counselors are fantastic. And while they do a lot of scheduling, they also help you through things and they're also there for you. In Frisco ISD, we have a student support coordinator who is a licensed counselor and therapist. And so staff are always welcome to go in and talk to them. And then it's confidential and all of that kind of stuff. But we also have faculty resources like free counseling sessions. You get so many a year, things like that. You usually get them with your insurance, which is not super great, but there are some that for you to use. And so use those as you need them, and get help when you need it.
Very good. Very good. What traits should a new teacher look for in a mentor in a school setting? And what is something a mentor taught you that every teacher should know?
Yeah. Again, I think it's somebody that's positive, somebody that is willing to listen to what you've got going on and that is going to offer you sound advice. Find somebody that has been doing it for a little bit longer and can really like say, okay, like pause, this is going to get better. Like,
Mm.
let's walk you through to the next step. And somebody who's willing to talk to you. The principal that I work for now, and I've been fortunate in this situation that I'm at where I kind of got to say, like, I don't want to go to a principal that I don't respect anymore. Because I have worked for principals that I really don't respect. And this current principal, she will listen to you and she will talk through things with you, no matter what time it is. She really spends the time. You don't feel like she's rushed, that she's got to get somewhere, that she's got to do something, or that you've been in there too long. She really just wants to talk to you, and she's willing to have hard conversations with staff, including me,
Mhm.
who I try to never do anything wrong. I'm like a puppy. I'm trying to please her all the time, but I do things wrong, and when I do, I want her to be able to like tell me what it is and then be able to coach me through it so that I'm better on the other side of that. The best advice that I got was we are in the customer service business and that business is students. And so we've got to do everything that we can to help those students and to have a great product because we've got great kids. So,
Absolutely.
yep.
Well, one more question that's not on here, but
Yeah.
one of the things that I talk about or try to emphasize in the course, as fast as and furious as it is for them,
Yeah.
is the importance of teachers, leaders, and community members to be involved. And I call it the TLCs. And
Yeah.
all the research points to all the positive things that could be awesome when you incorporate those. Whether it's a parent that comes in and volunteers to work within the classroom, that's
Mhm.
approved on the volunteer list,
Yeah.
or a guest speaker approved by volunteer list. But what advice do you have as far as like, I'll just pick one out. Like the power of an assistant principal to me is so huge. And I don't mean by the power as in like, oh, ordained power, but connecting as a first year teacher with somebody in administration. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts on, especially an AP, since there were so many hats? Not that you don't, but you've been an AP before, you've been a principal before, you've been all these different things. And it seems like the AP is maybe one of the first lines of defense, so to speak, for
Yeah.
administration. Or what are your thoughts on that? How powerful could it be to make that connection when you first start out?
Yeah, I would say that's huge. I mean, this is the person that's going to walk through your classroom, that's going to do walkthroughs on you, that's inevitably going to be your appraiser and do some sort of evaluation system, be it T-test or otherwise. This is somebody who, when you've got a parent that's angry and upset, is going to sit in that meeting and defend you. This is a resource that you could have, like, if you're nervous about having to call a parent because a student's behavior is not good in your class. I mean, the assistant principal wears so many different hats every single day. They always have their finger on the pulse of what's going on. And ultimately, they are the person that is going to go to your principal and say, yeah, this person really needs to be in a leadership position. Like I had a conversation with the teacher the other day. I was like, I don't know if you know this, but you're a leader on this campus. And I think inevitably, like you're going to want to not be in the classroom anymore. What's your next step? What does your next 5 years look like? And how can I help you get to that goal? And so, yeah, I would get to know your assistant principal again. Don't work in isolation. The assistant principal can be your biggest advocate. And I know no matter what, I will defend a teacher to the bitter end, even if the teacher is dead wrong. There's only one thing I can't defend, two things I can't defend teachers against, and that's money, mismanagement of money, and relationships with kids. I can't defend that. But anything else, even if the teacher is dead wrong, I will defend that teacher to the bitter end. And so you want that person to be your ally.
And is there anything else you want to add to the questions and answers? Maybe even a plug for any positions that are available?
You know, so like I said, I've worked at the element, I was a elementary school teacher for 7 years. And then I was a middle school teacher for 5 years. I was a gifted and talented English teacher. And then I was a middle school assistant principal, which is where we met. And then I was a high school assistant principal, and now I'm the associate principal at a high school. So I know people at all three levels. And if you need a job, you come and talk to me and I will find you a job.
Yes, all
Um,
right. Yeah.
there is a priority candidate thing on Friday. So if that's something that you're interested in, email me and I get you hooked
Great.
up.
And if you have any thoughts on substitute or permanent substitute positions, because a lot of those folks are like sophomores or juniors or even freshmen that are starting out their adventure,
Yeah.
it's something they would you recommend joining the sub pool, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I
And
can experience and see have a sample of what's out
yeah,
there. So
get yourself in there. Being a substitute teacher, oh my gosh, it's the hardest job ever. It's a really hard job, and you got to come in and you got to know what you're doing and be competent from day one. So, yeah, get in there and be a sub, or just come out and hang out with us.
yeah,
Say,
volunteer
hey,
list. There you go.
classrooms. Yeah, get me in some classrooms. Let me see what you do every day.
Yeah.
What are these kids like? So
Well,
I'd
thank you
love to
for your
have
time.
you.
I know we're both busy, but I really appreciate you carving out so quickly. Colleen, are you still there? Do you have any questions for Miss Brotherson, Mrs. Brotherson?
No, everything's good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us today, and I will see you back on campus.
Thanks,
I-
Dr. Parrish. See you
I'll be
later.
outside in a minute.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Have a good one.